What are you drinking there? What, the morning coffee there, Dion?
That would be Parisi's. Parisi, I'll give a shameless plug. Parisi Coffee. My sister-in-law works there. Their Italian roast is fantastic. I am a little bit of a weenie. I put my French vanilla creamer in it, so I don't necessarily drink it black, but it's very good. I highly recommend the Parisi coffees. Not a sponsor.
If I drink coffee, it would be like a gallon of creamer in there.
Yeah,
not a coffee guy.
You know, my family on my dad's side, mostly lovely people. But you would go to their house and it was black coffee and cigarettes all day long. I mean, I'm telling you, it was
6.
Oh man, I tell you, I went over there to do some work on my grandmother's house with my dad, and we're drinking. You know, I'll drink 2 cups a day. That's it, maybe a third, but I don't brew that much. I brew enough that I'm going to drink. I was about 5 cups in that day on a Saturday doing some plumbing work over there. My hands were shaking because it was black and strong, and you know, I was like, I don't know how you do it, but yeah, you know, sadly, with those type of habits, we've had some younger than expected losses on that side of the family. But no, I mean, like, hats off to my dad. He had his heart attack and didn't smoke again. That was 20 years ago. So he's, you know,
good.
He did stop that. And funny fact is he had pancakes the morning of his heart attack and didn't eat pancakes for about 4 or 5 years.
That's good too. I would think.
Well, yeah, but I think it's just the thought of
that day. I might not ever.
He did say one day he was down in the garage and he was frustrated about something. And he's like, I think I got some cigarettes around here somewhere. And it was about 6, 8. I don't think it may have been almost longer than that. And he went and looked and he found a pack, but it was empty. So that was like his 1 week moment. And he didn't do it. So
I've got this at my desk. It's some butter for popcorn.
Popcorn. Well, you're in the man cave.
Yeah. My son and daughter has been watch some movies down here or something like that.
They get any Andor time in? Are they Star Wars kids or?
More Marvel kids. They've watched the Star Wars all once, but Marvel is if they're gonna nerd out, it's gonna be to Marvel.
We're trying. Unfortunately, at the pace we started, we'll never catch up because we've watched like 4 movies, and since we started, I think they've made 3 more. So we're falling behind.
You pick up the pace.
It's tough. It's tough in the. We didn't do it enough in the summer. It's tough in the fall because you know you lose a Friday night in there, and then a lot of times in the winter, I'm doing work on Friday nights for Spectrum, so we lose that night too. So it's like Saturday night's kind of the movie night, and you got to be, and he's not totally into him, so he's struggling a little with Andor too because it's kind of slow going, and you know it's a brand new character, and it's not, you know, Obi-Wan he was into, but I think you got to. I think Andor's very good. I'm only 3 episodes in, but it's more on the nerd side,
sure,
of Star Wars. But it's very. I mean, it's not like it's nerdy people doing it. I mean, Diego Luna is an outstanding actor, and the guy who's the showrunner doing the script is been Oscar nominated, and I think it's Tony Gilroy. Is that right? Done a lot of great stuff. So there's your movie nerd moment. That being said, it's tough to top Obi-Wan Kenobi. That thing was unbelievable. I mean, if you want to nerd out on that, you haven't seen that? Oh, no. I won't. We won't do spoilers in. There's only 6 episodes, and it's as well done as any movie they've done. It's fantastic from episode 1 through episode 6, and it'll blow your mind in some spots. It's pretty good.
I feel like we're stalling here, Dion, because last week was such a bad week of high school football in Kansas City. Is that why?
Yeah, it's one of those. It's a middling week. Weeks 5, 6, 7 are the grind. I mean, the first 3, 4 weeks, everybody's excited. The season started. There's a lot of hope. Yeah. 5, 6, 7 is you're kind of the team you are. Things can change. There's no doubt about that. You can get hot at the end, and I've seen plenty of teams do that. Harrisonville team a few years ago fumbled the ball 7 times at Platte County, I think in week 4, and went on to win a state championship. We do know the well-documented history of St. James last year, starting 0-4 and not losing again. At the same time, Blue Valley North started 3-0 and haven't won a game since last year in week 3. So it's the middling weeks are the grind weeks, because now it's like you get the last 2 weeks, starting looking at brackets, starting looking at places where who's going to play in that first round of the playoffs, be it the Missouri side in the districts, the 18, 5, 6, 7, 8 team districts. or on the Kansas side where you got 1 through 16, where you have some just brutal games.
Yeah.
As
Yeah.
you would know, as being a 1 seed or a 2 seed in your side, as being a Mill Valley fan. So weeks 5, 6, and 7 are the tough weeks to get through. There's good games in there. I mean, last week we did have Aquinas Miege, and I was on the wrong side of that. I thought Miege was going to get that win, and hats off to Aquinas to come through on that and down 20-0 and come back.
And let's start there. I mean, that's the game from last week that was a great game, and B, kind of surprised, right? Because Aquinas in the previous 2 weeks had shown that they can be beat because they were beat. And then Bishop Miege just rolled through the season. And in those last couple of weeks, they had that common opponent of Rockers, where Bishop Miege handled them, and then Rockers took care of Aquinas. But in the Holy War, you throw everything out, I guess, right?
Well, it's kind of funny because when we talked to Coach Dryling last week, he's like, we outgained Rockhurst in the first half. We just couldn't punch it in. We couldn't do that. And they're down 20-0. So it's almost like that spilled over, but then they got it going. Turned over Bishop Miege, which Bishop Miege has not done. Mac Armstrong threw a couple interceptions, which he had not done all season long. He fumbled in the fourth quarter, which set up the go-ahead drive. And I'm not trying to pin down on Mac Armstrong. Everybody has a game like that. And, and Mac Armstrong fumbled by trying to get extra yards. It's not like he just tossed the ball away. It's not like he's a Missouri tailback trying to score a winning touchdown at Auburn, where he just tosses the ball out the back of the end zone. He was trying to get extra yards and trying to extend that clock and do those things. And it just, he fumbled the ball. That just happens sometimes. But no, outstanding win by Aquinas. And you look at those teams that are sitting in the top 3 in the K-Preps, which I vote in, ranking St. James, Bishop Miege, and St. Thomas Aquinas, all in 4A. I sent my rankings. And the funny thing about that is you're not going to make anybody happy, no matter what order you put those 3 teams in, because they've all beaten each other in a round robin.
Yeah. That's the funny thing. Like, if you're wanting any sort of clarity, right?
Yes.
As to who's going to be the better team in the playoffs, good luck there, because Aquinas beat St. James, Aquinas beat Bishop Miege, Bishop Miege beat St. James beat Aquinas.
Yes. And, St. James has looked as good as anybody the last 2 weeks. I mean, they were up big on a good Blue Valley West team who came back and made it 35-28. So I put in my rankings, and I said, I told Matt Gilmore, who runs K-Preps, I said, I went with a right now approach. What did I think at the minute that I typed it up? And at the minute I typed it up, I said St. James. I don't know if I think that now, but that's how I'm going to look at those teams. It's going to be on a game by game basis on who. If you want my number 1, you got to play well, because there's no easy head to head to say, well, they will definitely, Miege ought to be, and they say the same this week with Miege, St. James Aquinas. So that'll be interesting to see. That just shows you what rankings mean, because you don't know until the playoffs, especially with these 3 teams now that they're all in 4A. So it'll definitely, you're going to find out who the best one is. One of them's going to have to beat, somebody is going to have to beat somebody twice, or go through 2 of them probably.
Or be they probably lost to.
Yeah. So it'll be. I think it'll shake out the one. I'll be on one side of the bracket. The other will be on the other side of the bracket, or the 2 others will be on the other side of the bracket. So
I mean, I'd be shocked if we don't have 2 more games between those 3.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think so. So that was a game that kind of jumped out at you. Basically, we got a nice win at Lansing. Olathe South got a nice win over Shawnee Mission Northwest. Olathe North rolled, which leads into this week's game with Mill Valley. Mill Valley rolled. So those were the Kansas side games. Missouri side, Center, Odessa's a solid football team. They handled them. Liberty North decided we're done playing around in the first half, and came out and just blitzed Blue Springs out. Blue Springs out through a pick 6, then gave up another touchdown, and then fumbled in their own end. And before they were blinking their eyes, they were down 28-0. And I ran into Coach Wilmus last night, and he goes, we helped them, because that's a good football team. And he goes, they were really focused and ready to go. And that's the Liberty North. And he coached against them last year at Park Hill South. And he said, the difference he sees is their defense is even better than it was last year. Well, when you turn 9 starters off that unit, it's pretty good. So, those are some games that stood out. Rockers beat Blue Springs. Staley beats Park Hill South. Now, Park Hill South maybe is not quite the team they were last year. Staley's 5-2, very quietly. Got losses to Lee Summit, which
can still coach.
Yes, he can. They look a lot like Lawrence. When the first year they were there, Lawrence wasn't very good. The second year, they looked pretty good. They were young, but they looked pretty good. And then the third year, they were really good. So it looks a lot like that. But they're 5-2. Like I said, their only losses are to Lee Summit North and the Lee Summit. At the time, the Lee Summit loss looked a little bad because Lee Summit was a little bit inconsistent, but Lee Summit's looked pretty good the last 2 weeks. And their only bad loss is like a 30-0 loss to Lee Summit West when Martinez, their quarterback, is out. So at full strength, Lee Summit's a pretty solid team, and Staley's playing pretty well too. It's Lee Summit's at 4-3. That's a fun district, and those two districts on the Missouri side in Class 6 are, you've got your top dogs, and then you got like 5 or 6 teams that are all the same.
Yeah, plus Staley's got what, a 2-point win and a 1-point win. So I mean, you got a veteran coach like that, they're going to know how to win those close games. Yeah,
and it's the second year of his system, and the kids kind of know what to expect. And I think that I'm not shocked, that's happening, because the guy can win. He's won a lot of games now on both sides of the state line.
Yeah. Now that District 4 there, it's Liberty North right now in first place, Staley in second, and then 3-4 Rockhurst ahead of 4-3 Blue Springs South. But there's Liberty in there, and and Park Hill in there, 2-5 teams that are gonna be dangerous.
Yeah, it's funny because there's also some head-to-heads in there. Rock beat Blue Springs South. Blue Springs South beat Park Hill, depending on what Park Hill does. I mean, going down the line, like a Blue Springs South and Liberty, they've got it right in front of them these next 2 weeks. Blue Springs South's got Blue Springs this week. They need to take care of them, and then they play each other the last week of the season. And, I wouldn't be shocked to see every once in a while that happens. It could be Blue Springs South and Liberty playing each other again in week 10. So, both those teams have a lot in front of them, and it's interesting, and that'll be a good game next week. I think Blue Springs South will be a good game just because they're rivals. They're both playing better. I mean, Blue Springs doesn't have a lot of wins. I think they just got the 2 wins to their credit, but they're playing a lot better. And again, talked to Coach Wilmus last night, and he said they're not making mistakes they made early in the year. Much just better coached than they were in the past, and they're starting to really click in.
Who's going to have the tougher district, Liberty North or Lee Summit North? Because Lee Summit North is down there with the other Lee Summits, and Ray Peck in playing the Southwest Missouri,
Joplin,
Nixon, Joplin, Kickapoo. In years past, that's been a lot of times a cakewalk for a decent Kansas City team, but recently they've had some really good squads.
They've had some good teams. I mean, Joplin made the state championship game a few years ago. I don't know if you talk to people down there, the Knicks is unbeatable. Nixa. And I don't know why we're even playing the state championship game, because
is that what they're saying?
A couple people down there think Knicks is unbeatable. They got a really good tailback. They're well coached. I think that at the end of the year, the schedule that the Lee Summit schools and Ray Peck have played are going to benefit them, because week in, week out, we see it in the other, everybody else, a Park Hill team. Yeah. And, there's, the rankings, and if you notice that Rockbridge at 6-1 got some votes. And I like the guy from in Missouri, Tom Rackers, who's the editor at the Jeff City paper. And he's like, well, they're 6-1. Yeah. And their loss is to Park Hill South, who has 2 wins, and nothing against Park Hill South. But if Rockbridge played in Kansas City, they'd be 0-7.
Wow. Really?
I mean, they've got a schedule that's filled with Sedalia Smith Cotton, Jeff City, Capital City. I think they did beat Lutheran St. Charles, who's the defending Class 2 state champion, but
Rockbridge is Class 5?
6. They're 6.
Okay.
So yeah, I don't know. I don't Rockbridge back in the day when people were like, and they've got talent. There's no doubt. They always have good players, but back in the day they played, 2 or 3 Kansas City teams, including Rockhurst was on their schedule, and they would play some other. When they were independents, they had a tougher schedule. Well, they joined a conference. They made this conference out there to help in scheduling, which is good. They added, the three Columbia schools, the 2 Jeff City schools, and Sedalia, I think, is that conference. Well, as I've said before, Jeff City is trash. Those 2 teams are not very good. Hickman's better, but they were like 0-10 bad a few years ago. And Battle, who was, won a state championship like their second year, has not been good the last few years. And this is probably the worst Battle team that we've seen in a long time. So there's my rant against Rockbridge. But no, it's I think Kansas City's shown in Class 6 and in Class 5 too. I think that and possibly not giving enough credit to Class 5. Oak Park got a good win. That was probably a game last week we didn't talk about. What a tough, physical defensive game. And that's one of those things I think that our Class 5 teams don't get enough credit for, because it's Oak Park, it's Green Valley, it's North Kansas City, it's Fort Osage, not known as offensive teams first. They're known as tough physical defensive teams first. And they don't hang 50 a night. And so I think that a lot of people statewide look at these close scores and go, oh, these teams aren't very good. When in fact, defensively, I'd stack a lot of those teams up against anybody in the state. I like Francis Howell. I think they're a decent team. And, Carthage beat Webb City this week, but I don't think week in, week out that they play the schedule, especially now that they've removed, they've kind of plucked the Suburban Conference into 5 leagues. It's more apples to apples now than it's ever been. You're playing teams that are just like you. And so there's not the either playing a bunch of teams that are bigger than you or better than you, or a bunch of teams that aren't as good as you, because, back in the day, and I'm talking about at least some West teams that won state championships, but they'd step up when they're in Class 5 and go play a Blue Springs one week. And then they'd have 2 games after that where their starters would play a quarter and a half, and they could get healthy. And then, come the end of the year, they were like that. So now you've got everybody playing each other in a more apples to apples type situation, which leads to closer games, which leads to, that looking like maybe these teams aren't as good when in fact they are all pretty good. I think I'm back to where I was when I thought at the beginning of the season. I thought Class 5 was going to be pretty good and deep. And even a team like Belton, which has struggled the last few weeks, because their quarterback got hurt and they're still kind of trying to find their way. That's a pretty solid team. Talk about a team like Platte County that hasn't looked good. They hammered Belton last week, and now they're young. They're probably a year or 2 away from being back to that state championship level. But that we're talking about the 5th and 6th best teams are really pretty solid football teams, in Class 5.
You have Oak Park. They're 6-1 right now. They won that battle last week, 13-6. Spectrum Sports did a great job of miking up King Clemens, and at halftime he said, "Look, we're going to shut these guys out in the second half and win this thing 7-6." He was wrong on the offensive side, but he was right on the shut them out side. Such a good defense there. Of course, North Kansas City has a great defense as well. What a big win for Oak Park. Northland pride there. They've got the best record of any of the Northland schools. They've got St. Joe Central coming up next, and then Fort Osage, both winnable games.
Yeah, and that Fort Osage
right in at 8-1 into this.
That Fort Osage game is huge, because if Fort Osage wins this week and then they both go in, Fort Osage had the 2 losses. You're talking about possible spot in the district, top of the district rankings. Fort Osage would have all Fort Osage would have to do is get that 2 spot. If they beat them, they would get that 1. That being said, don't overlook St. Joe Central. Coach Reggie Trotter has them playing their best football. Yep. And he's the Chiefs coach of the week this week. That's been a long time coming for St. Joe Central. There was a stretch there where they had 4 different coaches in 4 years. And then Trotter took over. And then he's been there for 5 years as the head coach. And really, it took a long time to get building. And that's another team you see an apples to apples schedule helping them. And offensively, man, they can flat out score. So that's going to be a great matchup of styles between them and Oak Park. Now, defensively, they're going to give it up. They'll get into the 50s with you. That's not a problem. But no, that's going to be a good game for Oak Park this week.
All right, let's get to the Remax Big 3 games of the week on each side. Let's begin Mid-Buck and East Buck. I love this one. Mid-Buchanan, East Buchanan. You have East Buchanan. They're the defending champs. But they've got the loss, so I guess they're the underdogs going into this one against undefeated Mid-Buchanan.
Well, their loss is to a 7-0 Class 3 Savannah team that they almost came back and won on. So I don't know.
So maybe they're still the favorite.
I think they're still the favorite. Mid-Buchanan's won all their games. They've had a couple close ones. They're still really good teams, no doubt. But this is for first place in the district. They're probably going to play again. It's at East Buchanan. I think they'd like to play that game at East Buchanan a second time. It's definitely a spot where you want to get that home field. Sometimes it doesn't mean anything. Sometimes really good teams can go on the road and get wins. It doesn't really matter. But a lot of times just playing at your home place and the vibe from the crowd and all that has a lot to do with it. So that's a fun game. that's a 6-1, 7-0 going at it this week, ranked 2 and 3 in the state. So that it doesn't get much better than that.
No, that'll be awesome up north there. East Buck and Mid Buck going at it in a huge rivalry game, and one that could kind of set the table for the state champions in Missouri Class 1. All right, here we go. Center at Pleasant Hill. These are both undefeated teams, right, Dion?
Both undefeated teams. Center Class 4, 7-0.
Who stays undefeated here?
Ranked 4th in Class 4. Pleasant Hill 7-0. Ranked 2 in Class 3. I'm going to give the lean to Center. I just think that they hang 50 on everybody. Defensively, they're going to be challenged because Pleasant Hill can score. And they got a really good offense. But Pleasant Hill's defense is not the defense it was last year. Last year, Pleasant Hill was like, okay, let's get to 40 and we'll see what happens. Their defense was really young, but they're a lot better this year. I think it's going to be a knockdown, drag-out fight. I think it's going to be I think both these teams want this game as something right before the playoffs to get ready, get things going. At the same time, don't get hurt. Play well enough to try and make sure, even if you lose, like for a Pleasant Hill, if they were to lose and not get blown out, they've still got a good shot at staying number 1 in their district because they'll get bonus points for playing up. Center probably still going to be number 1 in their district.
They're different districts.
Yes, they're different classes. They're 4 and 3, so they won't see each other again. So stay healthy, get a good game in, and definitely want to get that win because you want to get that number 1 seed.
Center 7-0 in District 7 in Missouri Class 4. Grandview and Lincoln Prep in that kind of 2 and 3 spots right now. It's crazy. I mean, after this week, we'll have one more week of kind of time to shuffle and get ready for the playoffs. Just one more week of the regular season on both sides of the state line. Last but not least, University Academy at Van Horn. I love this one. University Academies
7-0
at Van Horn. Great stadium. We were there last week, and a capable team as well.
Well, and Van Horn's got a win over William Crispin. They played Richmond tough. The one I don't know what happened. I think they may have had some injuries. They lost to St. Michael's. They pounded Summit Christian, or the ghost of Summit Christian, whatever is that is this year. But no, Van Horn's a good team, and University Academy is a good team. So this is a fun game. Hats off to University Academy. They bumped up to Class 3 this year for a couple reasons. One, they went and won their district last year, so they get those bonus points as a charter school, and they co-op with the Kaufman School. So it's University Academy Kaufman School, so their numbers went up, which they'd co-opted in other sports they just hadn't in football. And their quarterback is a kid who had never played football before.
Wow. From
Kaufman. So it's Coach Blakemore has done a great job taking over for Coach Heffley.
Van Horn's still Class 4, correct?
Van Horn's still Class 4. So this is another cross class game that is good for both teams to play late in the season.
All right, on the Kansas side, Baldwin at Bishop Ward. I should know the quarterback very well. My son played baseball with him for a long time.
Yeah, and he's really talented. Their really tailbacks are talented.
He is fast.
And Bishop Ward's playing pretty good. They beat Santa Fe Trail last week. Baldwin is coached by one Bob Elisher from Free State. Yeah, and they got off to a rough start, 0-3, but they won their last 3 games. This is a huge game. I think both of them have a shot to make it out of the district along with Wellsville, because it's the old school district type, in Kansas, and 1A, 2A, 3A, where you play everybody in your district, and I think the top 3 make it out.
I think it's not top 4.
Is it top 4? Yeah, top 4 now.
I want to say top 4.
Top 4. Yeah, and
hold on. It's
they have 8 districts, so top
4. 16 defense, or 16 districts. Sorry, so
it's top 4 make it out.
Top 4, okay.
Yeah, because they have 8 districts, so there's 32.
Actually, let's see here.
Should be.
I've got 5 team districts here, so that would be 40 in.
They don't all make it out though.
On this side.
Yeah,
they might be right. Might be just 3.
Yeah, top 3 make it out would be
24, and then maybe at 24 from the other side. Like I should know this. I might be
because they start a week.
No, at the same time. They end the same time. So it's going to have to be 32 teams are going to have to get.
Yeah, it'd be 32 teams to get out. So needless to say, this is a big game for both these teams. Even if you and I can't figure out the playoff structure, in 1A, 2A, and 3A right now.
There's 8. Okay, I got it.
8 districts.
We were right. There's 8 districts across the whole state.
State.
I was thinking this was just the east side. 8 districts across the whole state of 5, and the 4
make it out.
4 make it to
which they should make it out. They should make it out. But this is home games. This is all those things because you cross district. I think is how they do it. You know, the one from plays the 4, the 2 plays the 3, and then they split it up.
Yes, Bishop Ward should make it out. They're at 4-2 overall, 1-1 in district play, but there's Osawatomie with already 0-3 in district play.
Yes. So Osawatomie's on the bottom, no doubt. That's who Ball beat last week.
So 32 of the 40 will make it.
Yeah, they were at 48 the previous years, and then they they kind of evened it out a little bit between 1, 2, and 3, and made it about the same amount. I mean, I think 1 has a couple 16 districts.
Yeah.
I think that's I'm harkening back to when I update the districts on Sunday nights and then post on Monday mornings. But no, Baldwin is playing good football right now. Bishop Ward has been playing good football, and I think, like I said, they're both gonna make it out probably because Osawatomie's not very good. But no, it's a good game, and it's a good game between 2 teams that back a few years hadn't had a lot of success. I mean, Bishop Ward's been the last couple of years, and Baldwin same way too. But turns out that Bob Lisher guy can coach a little bit too.
Still going. That's funny. I didn't know that he was.
Yes, it's his second year there.
Yeah. Shawnee Mission Northwest at Shawnee Mission East. I guess both playing on their home fields of Shawnee Mission North.
Yes,
is that right?
yes. They're both playing on their home field at another school.
Shawnee Mission East has shown some signs of life lately.
They have, and that's
they've been able to put up some points on some.
That's kind of what I like about this game. This is kind of a prove it game for both these teams. I mean, trying to this is a build a momentum game for both these teams. Going into the postseason, I think that's going to be interesting because East has shown some flashes. Northwest,
East Shawnee Mission North.
Yes.
Put up 57 on Shawnee Mission West. Was able to put up 32 on a really good Gardner defense, and then you have Shawnee Mission Northwest, who's been in a ton of games that they've come out on the losing end of. But I think it's weird to say because Malik Oedis will be gone next year. I think they're a year away from being really good. They're starting a lot of sophomores.
Yeah, they are. I think they'd love to. I think they'd love to sign Malik to a couple-year extension.
Exactly right.
Keep him around because he could play with these guys are seniors. They'll be pretty good. But no, like I said, I like this game. It's kind of a prove it game for both these teams.
And then last but not least, you have on the Kansas side. Look, last week in Kansas down in Wichita, you had the power matchup of Derby and Mays. You almost had that replicated up in the Kansas City area because Dion, there's just one undefeated 4A team, one undefeated 5A team, and one undefeated 6A team, I believe, on the east side in Kansas. And 2 of those are playing in Gardner Edgerton out of 6A, Olathe North out of 6A, and Mill Valley out of 5A.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be this is the first real big test for Olathe North. I mean, well, they've had Gardner a couple weeks. Gardner's both of their tests, really. That's the comparison.
And then you know what? Olathe North was in a game till the fourth quarter with Shawnee Mission Northwest. A fun spectrum game. They kind of was shootout back and forth, and then was able to pull away late in the fourth.
Yeah, so it's going to be which team's defense is going to slow down the other team's offense. Both of them are very defensive oriented. Both of them like to run the ball. I would, Mill Valley's a little more. Actually, Gardner's been better at passing the last few years. Not Gardner, Olathe North. They've been better at passing the ball the last few years. I mean, they're not just run. So, no, I think it's going to be.
They've got a lot. I mean, look, they're either Olathe North are either 6'4", 300 pounds, or about 5'7", 140 pounds. And can fly, right? They've got a ton of those guys on offense. The 2 Parrish brothers are so talented. One of them plays both ways, and the other on defense as well. And then you have Arlen Bruce's little brother. You have a tremendous tailback in Porter, and then a new quarterback, a senior who's just a football player.
Which is kind of what they do at Olathe North. They just find some guy who, we're like 30, like what's his face from last year. Yeah. Is the quarterback. So it's I think it's gonna be a fun game. And it's at Mill Valley, so it'll be a great atmosphere. And Olathe North travels well, so they'll pack the visitor side. And it'll be a good one. I'd give the lean to Mill Valley just because I think that they're
it's at Mill Valley. Look, Mill Valley, they have this the last couple of weeks, they have found themselves a bell cow in Tristan Baker. He's got 430 yards rushing over the past 2 weeks. And against Olathe South, I think he averaged like 5 yards a carry. And a lot of times that's like with a 60-yard run and a 40-yard run, a couple 3-yard losses. No, it was basically 4 to 9 yards every single play. I mean, it was death by 1,000 cuts against Olathe South, and then just kept that going with a 200+ yard performance against Shawnee Mission South. And Joel Appleby, if you're getting that kind of chunk yardage on the ground, you save Hayden Jay, the quarterback, in your back pocket for another day, because he can beat you over the top throwing the ball.
The less times Hayden has to drop back and throw the ball and expose himself to, I think they still allowed to touch the quarterback in high school football. We know they're not in the pros unless
Listen, it's funny. This isn't hyperbole here. There's no other level where you're allowed to hit the quarterback in any other position, basically, either than at the high school level.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, college targeting, you're kicked out for a game, and if it's second half, part of the next game, right? In the NFL, it's it's a junior high dance to escort. That's how you have to.
Not that we want to go down that rabbit hole, but I love the Max Crosby face mask to face mask with Mahomes that nobody even said boo about. That Chris Jones would have been shot dead on the field, I think, if he'd have done that. I mean, it's like, I don't.
Or how about Mahomes getting flung down
harder than Tom Brady? Yeah.
And by the way, and I think you're with me on here, none of those should be roughing the passer or even the Max Crosby Mahomes. Yeah. That shouldn't be that. I don't think that should be a flag. That's just football.
Yeah.
It's all just football. I'm clamoring for, okay, keep all those flags in your pocket.
Well, we don't want to go down that hole. We'll end on that.
But Hayden is so good. And it's kind of a shame in that Mill Valley really hasn't had, outside of Gardner for a little bit, a game this year to where he's been forced to show how good he is. Now maybe they'll get there on Friday night. But he's a guy, if he was thrown at 25 times a game, would be probably one of the front runners for the Simone Award.
Yep. Yeah. And we'll talk more Simone next week. We'll be more in depth than that. I'm getting ready to start releasing some Simone watch in all the categories, but we'll dive into that next week. Leave people wanting more.
Yeah. There's a website for that, right? We can go.
Yes. TheSimoneAwards.com. Got a great interview with one Evan Bame up on there right now. A little podcast with him. So check that out.
Only offensive line member to ever win a Simone Award. We haven't had a defensive.
Yep. He's the only non-quarterback
We've had some that played both ways.
Only non-quarterback receiver running back.
Oh, we had a tight end, right? Kaufman won?
Kaufman, tight end.
Tight end, or was he was receiver more in high school?
Receiver, tight end, receiver. I mean, so.
Yeah. So pretty much every unit on offense, someone had that first the player. Awesome. I know you got to get Dion. Any final words here on Snap Tackle Pod?
No, it's gonna be a fun week. I'm looking forward to it. No doubt. A lot of good games.
A lot of good games. Check out PrepsKC.com for all the scores, stories over the weekend, big plays from big games, all that stuff. And then check out KSHB 41 for Under the Lights show that starts about 10:15 every single Friday night with highlights of the best games from around the metro area. Enjoy your games. Dion, enjoy your basement and your coffee and your dog and all that stuff. I'm going to enjoy a nap, or maybe I'll walk my dog.
Maybe this afternoon I'll grab a nap. We'll see.
Okay, there we go. For Dion, I'm Mick. We'll see you next time on Snap Tackle Pod.